Synergy. Welcome to Synergy. Live with Synergy. Live with Synergy. This is your host, Andrea John Baptiste. Welcome to Synergy, where music, business, and culture synchronize.
Greetings, friends, family, colleagues, collaborators, audience, partners, sponsors, and of course, guests. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Synergy, where music, business, and culture synchronize. This is Andrea John Baptiste, and you are tuned in to WDJY 99.1 FM here in Atlanta. Thank you for those of us that are in your cars on your drive time. Thanks for tuning in, and do not touch that dial. Of course, you know what I'm going to say. We have an amazing show for you, and we do, don't we always? Yeah. And for those of you who are online, thank you so much for allowing us to come into your home, your business, your place of work, wherever you are listening to us, your AirPods. We thank you. Before we get started, I want to shout out and say a special thank you to our friends over on gluefm.com, where we are being simulcasted, and we are every Thursday through the efforts of Mark and Lisa Blaze. And if you are looking for amazing Caribbean programming, don't forget to tune in to Mark and Lisa Blaze, Blaze Nation, on Glue FM Fridays from 7 to 9 for the Gold Digger Show. I didn't say gold, I said gold, G-O-A-L, a series of amazing interviews. And on Saturday, same time, same place, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. for the Night Groove, where you can hear fantastic music from around the world. Hey, Mark. Hey, Lisa. Greetings. And thank you for all of your support for Synergy, where music, business, and culture synchronize. For those of you who've been trying to get a hold of us and saying, where is it? I go to the website, or I've been to your website, you can stay live and keep connected with us on Instagram as well as Twitter at Live with Synergy. Yes, we've just changed the Instagram handle. It was Synergy Radio Show, but we were able to get Live with Synergy, and so we decided to make it more uniform, right? Isn't that what the branding is all about? Isn't that what we talk about, some of the things we talk about here on Synergy? And certainly, last but not least, we encourage you to visit the WDJY Facebook page. Why? Because on there you can see every day's lineup, all of the guests, the information on all of the shows. So please head over to Facebook, WDJYFM, and like our page and stay connected. All right, so that's enough of me today, because you didn't tune in to talk to me. You tuned in because you knew we were talking about managing your music business. And let me tell you something. There's a wealth of information here today, and I know I say this, but the backstory. So I had a chance to talk to this gentleman for a little bit, probably about 30 minutes before the interview, and let me tell you something. I learned so very, very much, and his life sounds a lot like things that happen to me. We kind of just fall into things. Doing one thing leads to another. So lots of synergy, right? Synchronizers. And so who am I talking about? I am talking about Llewellyn Haydn. And Llewellyn Haydn is the founder of Wales Business Management. Lou, greetings, and welcome to Synergy.
Thank you. Great to be here.
It is our pleasure to have you. So before we get into all the meat and potatoes, give us your backstory and tell us about Llewellyn Haydn, founder of Wales Business Management. Give us some of your insights and your backgrounds about, and experiences rather, prior to founding the organization.
Sure. I've been lucky enough over the years to be involved in a number of different industries and have a number of different jobs within those industries. I started my work career out of college working for a large bank. And there I was a corporate banker and traveled all over North America trying to lend money and provide services to large corporations. I then ran the international function for the bank, and my last job there was as head of strategic planning. I would never want to be a strategic planner again, but I would not trade the skills that I learned from that for anything. So out of that first experience, I learned how to sell, I learned how to analyze, and I learned how to not only develop strategy, but implement strategy. I left the banking business and got the best job in the history of the world. This was in 1988. The Cold War was still going up. The wall separating Germany was still up. And I was introduced to two Germans who had a distribution business in Europe, and they wanted to bring money to the United States so that if Russia were to invade Germany, they could get on their plane and fly over here and live happily ever after. So for 3 years, they sent me anywhere from low six-figure money to seven-figure money every month, not every year, every month. And my job was to employ that money, which we did in primarily through real estate and investing second and third round funding of startups. Then in the early 90s, the Berlin Wall came down and the Cold War was over. And I thought that was great until I realized that that was sort of the end of my job, because the Germans needed the money back to be able to buy land in Eastern Europe to build distribution centers and take their business there. So I spent 3 years unwinding everything that we had done, and then I didn't have a job, and so I started brokering money by working with the Germans and investing money. I'd gotten to know a lot of people who had money, and it's never hard to find somebody who needs money. So I would put the two parties together and take a fee for having the wedding. I did that until 2000, when a friend came to me and he had bought a company that was not performing well, and he wanted me to come in and turn it around, which I did. Started that in the summer of 2000, and I guess a little over, not quite 2 years later, April of 2002, a company came in and offered us a lot of money for the company, and we let them have it because it was nice to have the money. So park that for a minute, because that leads right up to the starting of Wales Business Management. Now go back to February of 1986. I was watching 60 Minutes, and they did a segment on a gentleman by the name of Gene Lang in New York. Gene had started the I Have a Dream Foundation, and there was something about the way that foundation worked that I really liked. And 2 days later, I was in New York meeting with him. The concept of I Have a Dream is that you adopt, for lack of a better word, a cohort of kids. At that point, it was no later than the fourth grade, I'm sorry. And now it's the first grade, but you could get a classroom, you could get a specific age within, say, a housing project or whatever, but they had to be about the same age and academically about the same. And then you mentor them, expose them to things, introduce them to colleges, and then hopefully get them into college and then get them through college. And our obligation was to make sure that they could never say they couldn't go to college because of money, because I would provide the money. So we started in May of 1987. There were 47 kids in the group that I took on, and I would say about a third of them made it through through college. We had about 2/3 that started college, and then our job was to take the remaining third and get them the best possible job so that they could become good, productive citizens and have a satisfying life. Now, in that group of 47, there was a young man who turned out to be a pretty good basketball player, and so eventually he was tapped to go to a junior college out in California, and then he had about 15 or 16 colleges, 4-year colleges, Division I's that wanted him to come, all the big names in basketball. And so I helped him select which college he would go to, and he went and became even better. And coming out for the NBA draft, he was one of the top 10 names for the NBA draft.
Wow, that's huge, huge.
It was, and so in 2000, he was selected by Miami and went down there to sign his contract, and I flew down to meet him. And as we sat there and he signed his 3-year, $15 million contract, we smiled at each other and then went to lunch afterwards, and he looked across the table at me and said, this is a lot of money, isn't it? And I said, yeah, it's a whole lot of money, but I'll tell you what, you take care of basketball, I'll take care of the money, so you'll have some when you get through. And that's the way we did it. Now, that was 2000. Now, remember, in the spring of 2002, I woke up with no job. So I took 6 months after we sold the company and looked at other things that I might do for a living, and decided that what I had been doing for this basketball player, I could do for other people, and that was the genesis of Wales Business Management. So I didn't sit on my grandmother's knee when I was 4 years old and say, this is what I want to do. It just sort of worked out.
I love that story, Lou. And, I always say to folks, so some of the best things in my life I have not planned. I've just kind of walked or stumbled into it. But the generosity of your act of giving, your own desire to give back to the community, actually, you were investing in others, and that investment spurred your next big venture. And so I love when stories like so serendipitous, but also just kind of comes back full circle, because I'm such a firm believer in the karmic principles and karmic laws in terms of, we do reap what we sow. So big things, a story of how pretty much mentorship actually led you to your next big venture with a wealth of experience. I mean, so you were like a global trendsetter before global trendsetters were trendy.
I'm not sure I'd go that far, but thank you.
Well, that's what it sure sounds like in terms of, Russia, Germany, the Cold War, dealing with all of the international funds and things of that nature. I love it. So, your tagline is stick to being creative, we'll handle the complicated stuff. And I just admire the sound of all of that. Why? Because as you and I talked offline, and I shared with you, and some of the other business dealings that we do, particularly with my dad out of Jamaica, we do some trainings with artists in terms of business management, and we always talk to them about things like financial planning, strategic planning, life planning, and so on. And sometimes it gets a little bit sticky, and sometimes folks kind of do or don't or not interested. They want to do their creative stuff. But your team handles the business and personal management for those in the entertainment industry. And you used the phrase. You used the phrase with me, which I loved. We deal an inch wide and a mile deep. Those are inch wide and mile deep approaches to every client. Talk to me about that. What does that entail?
What that means is that we are a small firm. We now have 18 clients. and we like to do their personal, manage their personal money as well as their business money. And the reason for that is I found out early that if someone is going to make a mistake, they're going to make it on the personal side, and it's going to bleed into the business side. And so if you can discover it on the personal side first, you can start taking action to make sure that it doesn't come over, and you don't read about all that stuff in the newspaper or TMZ or whatever. So the stick to creative, we'll take care of the complicated stuff is because each client is different. They're different in their background, different in their personality, different in their team, different in their family, all that stuff. So one size does not fit all. We've got to tailor to the needs and the strengths of the individual. I like to tell people that our job is to teach them how to run themselves like a company. An artist is a company. They have manufacturing, they have distribution, they have marketing, they have human resources, they have finance, the same things that General Motors has. They just don't think about it that way. So my job is to get them to think that way and teach them the key things to look at so they can follow how their career is going from a business standpoint. And there is nobody else out there that we've been able to find that takes that same approach.
Wow, that is huge. I mean, so the business aspect of the entertainer, and that is so true. Yes, they are a business. You know, I often hear folks talking about the branding of the business and, oh, my brand. And yes, that's all part and parcel of it, but what's the business infrastructure? What roles do you have in play around your product? Because at the end of the day, you and your creation are the products of this business.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
We're having an amazing, eye-opening discussion, and we haven't even started to kind of get the rubber to hit the road yet on Synergy today with Llew Haydn, who is the founder of Wales Business Management. And Llew, before we move into the next set of topics, tell folks how they can connect with Wales Business Management.
Either by email or telephone is the easiest way. The telephone is 404-869-8080, and my email is Llew, and I spell that differently. It is LLEW at Wales BMI, and it's Wales like the country, WALES. B as in business, M as in management, I as in incorporated.com.
Excellent. So you talked about, as you're building this business around entertainers, you shared with me that you've created some proprietary tools that can look at income gaps for the artist. Tell us about that process and how it works, and why is this data important?
One of the things that I knew from running small businesses is that forecasting is very important. And what I discovered as I got into the music side of business management, which, by the way, now makes up about 80% of our clients, I discovered that nobody was thinking about that. Everybody was looking at monthly numbers, weekly numbers, tour numbers, and tour broken down into one week at a time kind of stuff. And nobody was stepping back and looking at the whole picture and trying to figure out what the year was going to look like. And I got a call one day from a manager who the client that we shared made around $100,000 a show. And the manager said he's got a chance to do 5 shows with his best friend. The problem is they're only going to pay him $50,000. Should we do it? And I said, well, I don't have to be real smart to say, no, we don't want to do that. And he said, well, how much will it cost us? And I thought, that's a pretty good question, and I don't know the answer to it, and I should know the answer to it. So that weekend, I developed a forecasting model that took into consideration all the variables of touring and of his artistry. And I was able to go in and plug in his route, if this 5-show route, if he was getting paid his full amount, and how much he would lose if he took the reduced amount. And the loss was going to be around $130,000, $140,000. And so I called the manager to tell him, and he said, okay, we'll do it then. And I said, all right, there's obviously something I don't understand about that decision. What is it? And he said, well, this is Portland, Seattle, and then 3 stops in Canada, and he doesn't have much of a Canadian fan base, so this will be our first step to build that. I then realized that that was a good business decision. It was, as a financial decision, it wasn't good, but finance is just part of any business decision. So they were doing the right thing for the right reason and understood exactly how much it was going to cost. And that was now maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and he now goes to Canada regularly and has a good fan base up there. So it was a very good business decision. The other thing about this, following that weekend, I brought in 3 kids from Georgia Tech, and I explained to them how the music business worked in pretty high level, and then I showed them the model, and I said, okay, take this thing and build it so that I can put in the fewest number of items, and it will tell me whether profitability goes up or goes down. And they did that, and now there are 3 pieces of information I need to put into the model, and I can tell you whether any individual show is profitable or not profitable, and if profitable, by how much. So it is a great tool, and we even have booking agents now that will call and say, listen, we've got a shoulder, or we've got a one-off, or whatever the anomaly is. Will we make money on this? And I can plug it into the model, and it will tell us whether it will make money, break even, or lose money. And then whichever of those it is, we then make a business decision. The manager and the artist, and with my input.
Wow!
And to my knowledge, we're the only ones that have anything like this in the entertainment business. It's common in the regular business world, but in entertainment, we just haven't found anybody that thinks like that.
Wow, that is wonderful. I mean, that's certainly a key tool, matrices for anybody to look at. Synchronizers, that business development and consulting is my other life, and so certainly we talk about the forecasting all the time with our clients. Now, you just said something. You mentioned that 80% of your portfolio or your client base is in music. The others are in sports. I'm asking.
They're in sports. They're in. I've got a record label president that we do all of his stuff for. I've got a motivational speaker, and I think that's about it. That would be the other 20%.
Very, very, very cool. So, of course, because inquiring minds want to know, and we're just nosy, our synchronizers we're interested. What has been so far the most interesting personal matter that you've had to handle for your artist?
Boy, that's I have 3 stories that I like to tell.
Tell.
And I will. The first one, the best one, is way too long for the show. But I'll start with number 3 and tell you that one day I had a bookkeeper come in, and she said, "I think we've got a problem." And I said, okay, who with? And it was a client who lived in West Hollywood. And I said, okay, what's the problem? And she said, well, for the last 7 or 8 Saturdays, he's gone up to Tarzana and bought about $150 worth of groceries. For those who don't know where Tarzana is, it's in Los Angeles traffic. It can be anywhere from an hour to 3 hours. So I picked up the phone. I called the artist, and I said, I'm going to save you some money. And he got excited, and I said, yeah, I found that there's a Ralph's supermarket about $6 from your house, and you're not going to have to go and buy everything up in Tarzana. There was dead silence on the phone. I said, how about this? I'll fly out this afternoon, and let's have dinner tonight and talk about what's going on, which I did. And, of course, dinner was a little tense, and I waited till the end until there was sort of a pause, and I said, okay, what do you want to do? And he said, what do you mean? And I said, do you want your marriage to work? And he said, I don't know. And I said, well, of all the answers you could give me, that was not the one that I wanted. So I'll tell you what, you go home and you think about it, and let's have breakfast in the morning and tell me what you want to do. And we had breakfast in the morning. He said he wanted his marriage to work. And so I found him a counselor, and he went to the counselor for a while, and then he and his wife went to couples counseling. And, again, that was 7 or 8 years ago, and they're still married. So it was just by looking at individual transactions that were going through his personal account that we were able to overcome that and save him a lot of grief. The second one is on a Saturday morning, I got a call from a sports agent who said, I've got a guy that plays with the Atlanta Hawks, and he bought a building, and he's having trouble getting the tenant to pay him rent. Will you see what you can do with it for him? So a little while later, the guy came over. He was 7 feet tall. If you've never stood next to a 7-footer, it's a big difference. It's a big difference. And so he told me the story, and it just didn't seem to make sense to me. So I asked him what he was doing that afternoon, and nothing. And we drove up to North Georgia to go look at this building he had bought. So it really wasn't in this town. It was near this town. So we're out in the country driving along, and we were following the numbers on the mailboxes, and I'm thinking, whoa, this is different. And we pulled in and we're going up the horseshoe driveway. And the house, the building, looked like a regular old country house, had a big front porch. And so as we started getting to the top of the hill, people came out of the house and were standing on the porch. This is like 12 or 14 people. And he stopped the car, and I looked at him, and I said, do they look a little different to you? And he said, yeah, they do. So we get out of the car. Now, here's a 7 foot taller. He gets out of the car, and like in a movie, the people on the porch take a step back. They were so taken back by his height. And a few minutes later, this lady comes out, introduces herself. She manages the building. What he had done was he had bought a business. The building came with the business, but he owned the whole business and didn't realize that's what he had bought. And so it was a horrible business. What this thing was it was a halfway house for people who had been released from the state asylum but didn't have family to help them translate over into society. So, and the state paid a fixed amount of money, which was not enough to cover costs. And so I told him, all right, we'll run this thing for as long as we need to, so that we can minimize the losses. It's never going to make a profit, but we can minimize the losses. Then we'll find somebody to buy it. And if I say if your loss is less than $300,000, you're going to owe me something. So we ran it for a little over 2 years, found somebody to buy it, and in fact, he lost about $250,000 on it. but it was gone, and it wasn't soaking up money every month. So it was a good decision. So while we're doing all this, he says, I don't care if I lose a little money there, because I'm going to make a lot of money on this real estate thing that I invested in up in western North Carolina. And he talked about it enough to where one time I said, well, tell me what this thing is. And he told me about it, and I said, I'd like to see the paperwork on it. So a few days later, he brought me the paperwork. I read the paperwork, and I said, there's a problem here. And it was only because of my business experience that I was able to pick up what the problem was. So I called him, and I said, I don't know how bad this is, but it's bad. I'm going to drive up there tomorrow and see what's going on. Well, this is a project, a second home project in the mountains of western North Carolina that had taken in $145 million. And so I drive into this place, and there's about a 10 or 12 acre mud pit. And I look up on the mountain, and there's not a single house up there. And so I drove around, and there wasn't even a road to get up there. So there was a sales trailer. At the time, I was driving a pretty nice car, so I pulled in, and my car was the worst car on the parking lot. It was, I was sort of taken back. I went in, got the sales pitch, and I saw what the problem was. And then I knew. Got back in my car, called my client and said, there's a crime taking place here. I'm driving to Raleigh to talk to the state attorney general so that this can be corrected. So I went over there, met with them, documented and discovered exactly what the problem was, and they in turn brought in the FBI, who 10 days later sealed off this little town at 3 o'clock in the morning and went from business to business and home to home with subpoenas and drove away with 3 Ryder trucks of computers and file cabinets and all that kind of thing. 5 people went to prison out of this. And the FBI traced the money to Argentina. Our treaty with Argentina does not have any ability to go in and take stolen goods or to extradite someone. So it turned out to be the 5th largest real estate scam in the history of our country. And it all started with a phone call from an agent.
Wow. And what were they doing? Were they just selling lots that were not existent?
Without getting too technical, you got 100% loan for your investment. Well, that's already a red flag. But then you would lease the property back to the developer, and the developer was then taking that property and using it as collateral to borrow additional money. So they were putting 2 liens on the same piece of property, and legally you can't do that.
So
it was a little more complicated than that, but conceptually that's where it was.
Wow. Amazing information. I mean, now that took it to another realm of personal, right? From just looking in, people always tell you want to see how you really get to know people, look at their bank statements, just look at their credit card statements, right? Because it shows you different patterns and interests and things of that nature. So a bookkeeper came in and just said, hey, this is something weird going on, and you had the insight to be able to say, dude, straighten up and fly right, because
we're all frightfully rote in what we do. 70 to 80% of what we do is we do it every day. So again, you're looking for the anomaly. You're looking for what's in that 20%, right?
Wow. Numbers don't lie. We are on today with Llewellyn Haydn, who is the founder of Wales Business Management, a group that works with managing both business and personal for the creative. So as their motto says, stick to being creative, we'll handle the complicated stuff. Synchronizers, stick and stay as we take a pause for this word from our partners.
If you enjoy the great music business information you get here on Synergy, then check out Music Biz Live. You'll hear from high-level executives from companies like Facebook, Spotify, Twitch, Universal Music, M-Theory, and Songtrust as they discuss the most pressing issues the industry is facing right now. Be sure to join Music Biz Live each week, Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern. Find out more at musicbizlive.org.
You're listening to Synergy Radio on WDJY 99.1 FM, where music, business, and culture synchronize.
And we are back on Synergy, yes, where music, business, and culture synchronize. And this is Andrea John Baptiste. And don't forget, you can follow us on Live with Synergy, both on Twitter as well as Instagram. And, just in case we run short of time, I cannot miss out on saying my special hellos to some of our special friends who tune in every week. And I want to say, hey, Mama Leonie, how you doing? Diva J, Sheehan, and Yinue. Hello. Hope summer's off to a good start for you guys. Ernestine, my Belizean soca queen. Rishma, attorney extraordinaire. Dada. Greetings. Auntie Diane. Of course, JT the Believer. Jeff. Greetings. Thanks for all the work that you do for us. Gigi, hey, how you doing? Ras Indio, greetings and big up yourself. And hello to some of my favorites, John, Mweza, Mina, and Malika. And last but definitely not least, the entire group of Link and Chain. Dwight, Tassetti, greetings, and thank you for always tuning in and your feedback. Olivia, I want to say hi to you too. All right, so like I said, we're managing your music business today as we speak with Llewellyn Haydn, founder of Wales Business Management, and he was just telling us, if you're just tuning in, you missed some good stories, and you can head over to our YouTube page in a week or so, and the show will be loaded, but you want to hear some of the personal management stories, which were intriguing, and I wish we had some more time, because if story number 3 and number 2 were so good, I can't imagine what number 1, the one that we don't have enough time for, would be. But hey, maybe I'll get it offline, synchronizers. We'll see. So, Lou, let's talk about wealth planning for entertainers, right? Because that's something, unfortunately, we hear, we read, we see so many times. This person dies, and we all have their hit records. We all know, the lines to their songs. We've watched their videos 5,000 times, and the family is doing, a GoFundMe plea or some other way to raise money. We've learned that they have been living in dire straits for a very long period of time, and those stories, unfortunately, are way more common than I think we would like them to be, particularly knowing, individuals' influence and abilities and skills. Talk to us about what maybe like 3 basic things that entertainers or the creators should know as they're looking at, building wealth over a lifetime, maybe even a legacy.
Sure. The 3 things that I get them to focus on, the first one is, you know it, whether you live it or not, you'll have to answer, but it is spend less than you make. Because when you first get started in your career, the need for money is huge, and it's easy to go deep in debt trying to get yourself to the forefront. So I work with them to discipline so that they spend less than they make, so they have something to invest. The second thing that I get them to pay attention to is don't invest in things, don't even think about investing in things that their friends and coworkers and other artists are investing in. You don't know what their financial situation is. You don't know anything about the transaction. And I could tell you some stories about people that have the story that I told you about the halfway house up in North Georgia, that's a perfect example. He bought it because a friend of his said, you need to own real estate, and he didn't know what he was doing. And the third thing I'd like to get them to think about is, what is their risk tolerance? Do they think they can make a lot of money fast in the stock market and various other investments? And the answer is, the higher the risk, the higher the reward, but the higher the risk, the bigger the chance of failure. So I get them to think long term, and I get them to invest with good, reputable firms. I'm not a real big fan of big box investment houses, although as quickly as I say that, you can find some very good advisors inside the big boxes. I tend to go more towards the boutique wealth management companies, and we pick the one that the artist feels the most comfortable with.
Very nice. Spend less than you make. We all should have that one jumped into our head. Don't be a follower investor. I love that one. So in Jamaica, we would say, don't follow fashion. So yes, and what's your risk tolerance? Good word from Llewellyn Haydn of Wells Business Management, as we're talking about wealth planning for entertainers. So, technology, right? We have to live with it. We can't live without it. But sometimes it creates issues. So with digital technology and the new market disruption that we're seeing with streaming and things of that nature, what should artists know? What should artists know, rather? And what changes do you think that they need to embrace in this digital age?
Well, you're right. We're never going back to physical the way any of us enjoyed it. Digital is the future, and the future is here with us now. I'll tell you a story. Last Friday, I got a call from a client, and he said, I've been with this agent as long as I can do it. They don't have the network to take me to the next level. Will you help me find another manager? I told him I would talk to a few people, see if I could get some interest. I called the first one, and the first question out of his mouth was, what are the numbers? And in the industry, when somebody asks you, what are the numbers, they want to know, what are the Spotify monthly listeners, what are the followers on Facebook, and what are the followers on Instagram? And if you have significant numbers, they'll talk. If your numbers are small, they're not interested. And so those numbers have to be significant to garner the attention of anybody who's going to work with you. I mean, are there people out there that'll take your money and not do anything, not help you? Of course there are. But if you want your career to move, you've got to get your socials up. I can tell you, program directors at radio stations, those are the three things they look at first. Then they go to the other streaming services and drill down a little bit. But you got to have good numbers there. Now, there's one other factor in here, and that is how many people respond to things that you post. If you post something and you get 20 comments or likes, that has done more harm for you than it has done good, because somebody else looking at that objectively would say, this artist isn't well connected with the fan base because the fan base isn't responding. So, you get 100 or more comments or likes, now you're in the game. I work with a girl who's changed from an acting career to a music career, and I promise you, she puts a picture up of herself sitting in a chair, nothing more, and she'll get 40 to 50,000 likes inside an hour. And then when she does interactive stuff, she'll get 150,000 people will respond to her. So it's not just making the numbers big, it's having the numbers be real and show that you have followers, fans who believe in you and follow you regularly.
The connection and engagement. You just opened or segue to something I wanted to ask. Your experience with working with women in the industry, any differences in any of the strategies that you work with them on? Do you see any consistent trends or anything like that? Is it different
really.
or no?
There are some genres that are more female-friendly than others. I guess the one that gets held up as the bad example most often is the countryside. But they're starting to change a little bit. But certainly pop and rock and heavy and jazz are all very receptive to women. And the key is building a brand that isn't based on your gender, but based on who you are and why you're different.
I love it. Good word. Good words from Llewellyn Haydn of Wales Business Management, where they allow the creatives to stick to being creative and they'll handle the complicated stuff. When a potential client comes to you, Lou, what are some things that they should have? Any basics that you expect them to just kind of have and be ready with?
Yeah, the first question I ask a prospect is, do you want to make a living in the music business or do you want to hear yourself on the radio? Strategically, those are two very different avenues. One requires a great deal of money, one requires less money. But the strategies and everything that you do to work with that client are going to be very different by virtue of their answer to that simple question.
I love it. That's and their answer should be very telling. Oh, wow. Never thought of that. That's a great question. I had an aha moment here, synchronizers.
my first music client wanted to make a living in the music business, and she has stopped touring and just does one-off shows, and she still makes before tax, but after expense, she still makes between $100,000 and $110,000 a year, working maybe 20 dates a year. So she succeeded.
Yeah. Wow. Very, very nice. That's a good story. Nice story of success. I think all of us want to be able to do that. Do the work 20 days, 100 and 110 grand. Yeah. Sounds great to me. And so if you do and you're into the creative pieces or aspects, you know who to call. And so, Lou, as our time winds down, give folks the contact information one more time, please.
The phone number is 404-869-8080, and my email is Lew, L-L-E-W, at Wales, W-A-L-E-S, B-M-I, boymotherit.com.
Awesome. And so, as we wind our time down, one last question for you. Label versus indie. If your folks come to you and they have that, they're at that impasse, so to speak, what do you suggest? Is it clear cut or no?
Yeah, the labels no longer have the money to make you a star. The labels have money to make you a bigger star. You've got to do all the heavy lifting now. You've got to get those social numbers up. You've got to build the fan base before they're really going to be interested in you. And then once you've done the heavy lifting and they would entertain signing you, you're at the position where you can decide whether you want to keep going alone or whether they're going to bring something to you that you don't already have. So it's the work for getting noticeable is now much more on the artist than it was back when they'd sign somebody off a bus and make them a star 2 years later by spending millions of dollars.
Wow, good word. So establish your foundation, your root, your business and your brand, and then look at being a bigger brand and a bigger business. Amazing. Amazing. Lou, I thank you so very much for the time today, Synchronizers. Did I not tell you that we had an amazing show for you? I see you all nodding your head. I can hear it. Well, that is our time for today as we talked about managing your music business, a wealth of experience, all puns intended, from Llewellyn Haydn, who is the founder of Wales Business Management. And remember, at Wales Business Management, you get to stick to being creative, and they'll handle the complicated stuff, both personal and business. This is Andrea John Baptiste, and you have been tuned in to Synergy, where music, business, and culture synchronize, live at 5 on Thursdays here in Atlanta on WDJY 99.1 FM. Stay connected with us on Instagram and Twitter at Live with Synergy. Until next time, live with Synergy.
Hey, synchronizers. You know I'm always filled with the backstories, but I don't do shameless plugs or the ask very often. So, this is how you know it's pretty important to me, right? Well, I am a founding funder of an organization called Island Space. And Island Space is dedicated to creating an archive, a repository of information, resources, artifacts for the Caribbean American, about the Caribbean American experience. And so I'm a founding funder of what they're calling the Island Archives Caribbean Museum, and you can be one too. All I'm asking is that you give $10 or more today or in the near future and become part of history in the making. It will be the first ever unified Caribbean museum celebrating Caribbean culture. And when I say unified and when I say diverse, I'm talking the entire diaspora. So no, don't think it's just all about Jamaica and Trinidad and Cuba and the larger, and Hispaniola, right? And the larger or only English-speaking parts of the Caribbean. No. And that's in my Belizean accent. Island Space is a space for everybody from the Caribbean as we talk about our important contributions to this nation as well as our rich and diverse history. So, to donate $10 or more, please visit islandspacefl.org. Again, that's islandspacefl.org and become a founding funder. Please. That's our time. That's our chat. Now it's time to call it a wrap. Tune in next week at 5 for another edition of Synergy Live, where music, business, and culture synchronize. This is your girl, Andrea John Baptiste. Follow me, follow us on Live with Synergy on Instagram and Twitter. Synergy is a production of Axum Management Capabilities, produced by JT the Believer.